Cuyahoga County Human Resources Appointments and Equity Committee is called to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
As a reminder to all in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Ms. Turner.
Present.
Mr. Gallagher. Mr. Gallagher is absent. Mr. Miller is absent. Ms. Conwell.
Present.
Mr. Sweeney.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Hey, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Do we have any public comment?
No, Madam Chair, no one has signed in.
Hey. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the July 25th meeting?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now the first item.
Resolution 2023-0223, adopting various changes to the Cuyahoga County non-bargaining classification plan.
Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Albert Bouchahine with the Personnel Review Commission. Before you for your consideration are modifications to the county's bargaining classification plan. Changes in departments' operational needs and routine maintenance necessitate the revision of 4 classifications. 3 are part of routine maintenance and 1 was a request by the administration. The Senior Development Housing Specialist pay grade increased 1 pay grade, but the 2 incumbent salaries fall within the new recommended pay grade, so there should be no fiscal impact unless HR decides to increase their rate. All the modifications before you were prepared by the PRC, class and comp staff who has worked extensively with the Department of Human Resources and Department Management to ensure that they're fully aware of the changes before you. In accordance with the PRC rules, the proposed changes were posted on the PRC's website prior to your consideration. The PRC considered and approved recommending these changes at their July 12th, 2023 meeting. Madam Chair, I'm requesting a second reading suspension of rules to expedite the reassignment of employees into their proper classifications. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you for your consideration.
Hey, you are welcome. Are there any current or incumbent employees impacted by these changes, and if so, how many?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, there are a number of employees, or I should say incumbents in all 4 of these classifications, but 3 of them have no change, so there's no impact to any of these employees. The one that does have a change has an increase in pay grade, but the employee's current salary falls within that new recommended pay grade.
Okay. Curious question. Why is the Senior Development Housing Specialist position still listed in the Department of Development rather than the newly created Housing Department?
You'll be seeing, Madam Chair, you'll be seeing that come in a different action where we're including the Housing Department on these specs as well. Good question.
Great. And what is the fiscal impact?
There is no fiscal impact unless the Department of Human Resources decides to increase the 2 incumbents. There's 2 incumbents in the Development Housing Specialist classification. Their current salaries fall within the new recommended pay grade, so they can leave them where they're at, or they can give them a pay increase.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to my colleagues.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, considering that they are all good, can I have a motion to move this item to the full body of the council for second reading under suspension of the rules?
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bouchahine. Madam Clerk?
The next item will be taken out of order. It is item C, Resolution 2023-0235, adopting various changes to the Cuyahoga County non-bargaining classification plan.
Madam Chair, Albert Bouchahine again with the Personnel Review Commission. Before you is a recommendation to create 1 new classification and to revise 4 classifications and delete 2 classifications. The proposed classifications were all shared with the department management to ensure that they're fully aware of these changes. All the revisions are part of the PRC's routine maintenance process. As you may notice, the Early Childhood Mental Health System Coordinator increased in pay grade. That's the only one that increased in pay grade. The others stayed the same. Those incumbent salaries, again, fall within the proposed pay grade increase, so there should not be any fiscal impact unless HR decides to give them a pay increase. All the modifications were prepared by the PRC staff and shared with the Department of Human Resources. They were posted on our website prior to the PRC's consideration. And I ask again for a second reading suspension of rules, as the Sheriff's Department would like to fill the fingerprint ID technician as soon as possible. It is a new classification that they will post and fill.
Can you speak to the misclassification that occurred with the Public Works position currently being proposed for elimination? Why did this happen? And was there a fiscal impact?
Madam Chair, are you referring to a vehicle electronics technician?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there was two incumbents in that classification. They were misclassified years ago. They really don't perform any of the essential functions of the vehicle electronics tech classification. They were reassigned already to a new classification with no fiscal impact. Their salary stayed the same. So there's no need to have this classification, as Public Works has no intention to fill it.
Who's currently serving as the county's lead on the operation of the AFIS system?
Is that AFIS? Is that like public?
Yes,
Is that
AFIS.
public safety?
Yes.
I really don't know about that. I could get you the answer,
Okay.
but I'd have to reach out to Director Carney.
Okay. That would suffice. Colleagues?
Through the chair to Mr. Bouchardin, you said Exhibit D was the early childhood mental health system, correct? That had only fiscal impact. What was the department's reasoning for the fiscal impact, and was it more or less?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Conwell, the whole position was kind of redefined. There's a lot of additional duties that they added, a minimum requirement of having an MST, a multi-systemic therapist certification or license, I believe. So the position was expanded. So there are different factors that go into pay grade determinations, and a lot of those increased as we redefined the classification. There is no fiscal impact because the incumbent salary falls within with the recommended pay grade. But HR, when it goes to HR, if adopted by you, they could decide to increase the employee's pay, but they don't have to because they're already above the minimum.
Okay. So they assigned more duties but didn't give any additional pay in this particular position?
Well, that's not necessarily the case yet. Once adopted, it would go to HR, and then they will review where the employee is within the recommended pay grade and decide whether they increase their pay or not. We don't have the purview or authority to increase individual salaries. We just set the pay grades.
So I thought they would work with you since, because sometimes you come before us and you say there has been an increase. So I was just wondering why they, did they let you know if they were planning on increasing the salary at a later date, or?
Madam Chair, Councilman Conwell, they did not let us know specifically. The only time I will tell you that there's a fiscal impact is if somebody falls below the minimum, so they have to get them to the minimum. And when in the cases where they fall within the recommended pay grade, it's up to the Department of HR to do an evaluation whether they give them an increase or not. But I can say that we do share the pay grade recommendations with HR and the department director before we bring it to the PRC and you. They look at it, make sure that they have the funding and et cetera, if there is a fiscal impact. So we do work with them prior to coming to you with these recommendations.
And how, through the chair to Mr. Bouchardin, how many employees does this impact?
The Early Childhood Systems Coordinator only has one incumbent.
Okay, which department are they falling under?
That falls under Robin Martin and Family Children
Okay.
First Council.
Gotcha. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Quick question, and I'm still a little new at this. And I'm not the newest member of council. That distinction falls to my colleague, Mr. Kelly, but I noticed that all three of, all of these positions, the last time they were reviewed was 2019. What's the review schedule normally?
When we put together our routine maintenance schedule, we had approximately 400 non-bargaining classifications. So we initiated a 4-year maintenance cycle where we would review 100 classifications per year. We're about 365 right now, so we're reviewing less than 100 a year. This is actually the 4th year, Madam Chair, so Next year, we'll be going back to the ones that we did 3 years ago.
Okay. If there are no further questions, can I have a motion to move this item to the full body of council for a second reading under suspension of the rules?
So moved.
And moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Bushy.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2023-0226, confirming the county executive's appointment and reappointment of various individuals to serve on the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority Board of Trustees for various terms. For the appointment of Stephen Love for the term March 4th, 2023 through March 3rd, 2026. For the appointment to Deidre McPherson for the unexpired term ending March 3rd, 2024, and the reappointment of Karen Moss for the term March 4th, 2023 through March 3rd, 2026.
Okay, thank you. I believe at this time we have a proposed substitute.
Yes, we do. So the proposed substitute will remove.
Zoe, can you just state your name for the record, please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Zoe Toskis from County Executive's Office. The proposed substitute removes Stephen Love from this piece of legislation. He will be reappearing on future legislation and appearing before this committee. It will also remove Karen Moss from this legislation. She has withdrawn her nomination, and I know you and your staff have received her letter. So that remains just Deidre McPherson to be Deidre McPherson to be appointed for an unexpired term ending 4/30/24.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And then
Good morning. Ms.
good morning. Then I'll start. So after that substitute, so again, Zoe Toskis on behalf of the county executive pursuant to section 604 of the Cuyahoga County Charter. Yeah, do we need to vote on the substitute first?
Yes, I think, Madam Chairwoman, I move to accept the substitute.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you, Councilman. So again, Zoe Toskis on behalf of the county executive pursuant to section 604 of the Cuyahoga County Charter. I'm here to recommend the appointment of Deidre McPherson to the GCRTA Board of Trustees to an unexpired term ending February 30th, 2024. She will be replacing Roberta Duarte. We are requesting a second reading suspension. Before hearing from Deidre, we're inviting Annie Pease, our senior advisor for transportation, on behalf of the county executive's administration to present. Afterward, we'll hear from CEO of Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority, India Birdsong Terry, and then we will hear from Deidre. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd ask all speakers to state your name.
Good morning. My name is Annie Pease. I'm Senior Advisor on Transportation to Cuyahoga County, and I'm pleased today to introduce the County Executive's nominee for RTA's Board of Trustees. As you know, Cuyahoga County appoints 3 members to the 10-person RTA Board. The board has a role with RTA's governance, long-range goal setting, annual operating budget, procurement of contracts above a certain threshold, and the hiring of the general manager. The Executive Office has carefully considered nominees for the board to best fulfill the duties of those positions. Important considerations include diverse professional backgrounds, a strong familiarity with the transit system, connectedness to RTA's constituents, and demographic diversity of board members. We are pleased to introduce the administration's first nominee today, Deidre McPherson. Deidre's professional background includes connecting community members to major institutions, project management, and entrepreneurship. Additionally, her passion for the arts, her commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and her leadership in Cleveland's mobility space make her an excellent candidate for RTA's board. A thriving public transportation system is important for public health and well-being, economic mobility of county residents, and a robust business sector. As Senior Advisor on Transportation, I look forward to working with RTA staff, as well as current and future board members, to communicate the county's priorities and serve as a liaison between the agency and relevant county staff. And as Zoe mentioned before hearing from Deidre, I'd like to welcome and offer the opportunity for representatives here from RTA to share their perspective. And thank you to members of council and the committee for your time today and consideration of Deidre McPherson's nomination.
Thank you. Our next speaker.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. My name is India Birdsong Terry. I serve as General Manager and CEO for the RTA. This morning, we are very pleased, overwhelmed and overjoyed, actually, to be able to receive Ms. Deidre McPherson as one of the appointed members to our board. As mentioned by Annie, we have a board of 10 availabilities or 10 slots. It's our goal to be able to operate with that full 10 as we have a lot of resolutions that hit the deck, so to speak, every 2 weeks through our board schedule. The role of the RTA board trustee is really important, and it's essential to be able to make sure that RTA is guided in the appropriate manner to make sure that we hear the voice of the customer and that we also can translate our mission of customer service and excellence to those in the Cuyahoga County region. Ms. McPherson has been a joy to be able to work with so far. I'll say that because we've had a couple of conversations and we're able to break bread on a personal note a few months ago and weeks ago to be able to talk about her passion for the arts. I will say that we have a vested interest in that ability and that capability to be able to translate the needs of our passengers and what's going on in the areas of DEI, what's going on in the areas of equity and inclusion, and of course, just being able to bring the vibrancy back to Cleveland as a Renaissance city. We're very confident that Ms. McPherson will be able to embody that as a board member. As mentioned before, we thrive and focus on access, safety, and the education of our customers to make sure they have safe passage through the streets of Cleveland and the surrounding counties. We do also work within the ADA community, which is also important to us because we want to make sure that everyone has an equitable experience to transportation in Cleveland. As you may or may not know, we have a few things on the docket over the next few years that will require the board members to really be married to the idea of equity and inclusion as well as accessibility in transit. One of those major projects being the replacement of our rail fleet, including the light and heavy rail. Being able to understand how our customers' needs and wants are translated through the visual experience can't be understated. It's for these reasons and many more that we appreciate the consideration of the council this morning, and we will embrace Ms. McPherson with open arms shall she be voted on this morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I am happy to answer any questions if you have them today.
You go, ladies first.
Councilman Conwell.
Through the chair to Ms. Birdsong, on the board currently, is there a rider on that rides our RTA? Because I know that was a big issue of the individual groups that come before us, is to make sure that there's actual customers that are sitting on the board.
Absolutely. Through the chair, thank you so much for the question. We have 10 seats, and dare I say, every individual on that board is married to the idea of transit being an essential service. I'll probably say that there's a mix of folks that bike, walk, drive, and take public transit. A lot of our members are broken down into where they live. So, for example, we have 4 seats by the city appointment, 4 by the mayors, or 3 by the mayors and managers, and the remainder by the county. Out of those individuals, we probably have, if I could guess, about half that take transit at least on a 50% basis or more. And that includes those individuals by where they live, where they work, and then also take the trolley downtown. We do have a few members that were recently appointed that are very big pedestrian bikers as well and take our service on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Yes.
Councilman.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Madam CEO,
Yes,
nice
sir.
seeing you again. Just on the governance with that 10, is that by code or by state law? It's 10?
Yes, through the chair, thank you. It is through the code book. It's been around for quite a while. It precedes most likely me and potentially you as well.
It's
Yeah.
always been 10, but by 5, you're stuck. Is there a tiebreaker mechanism in the Chico?
Sure. We have been operating with 9 for the better part of the last year and a half, just because of the kind of rotation of people on and off. We always maintain a quorum, so we make sure that we have at least that 6 or more as we go through the resolution.
I know all that, and you're a very good presenter, and you didn't answer my question.
It's always been that way. We haven't been in the situation where we needed a
But I'm serious
tiebreaker.
about that, just functionality-wise.
Yeah.
The 5-5, and there's no tie-break mechanism in there.
Not that I'm aware of. We can definitely check that and get back to
Wouldn't
you on
mind
that.
working on that. It's.
Absolutely.
Yeah, either a 9 or 11, just because the board that we're presenting, I've known most of them, and the new person that's coming up, I'm excited to have her be part of it. But as time goes on, independent thinkers could go 5-5, and, they are there to help you along. So that's in a serious note.
Sure.
Wouldn't mind knowing what mechanisms in there to be able to maybe offer a recommendation to modify it to an odd number.
Absolutely. Through the chair, I will say that out of that 10, we do have a little bit of a difference in association from where they're from. So that being said, we have the 4 members that represent the city. And when I say represent, they're appointed by, so their views are individual. But they do tend to be able to vote based on their experience, and that experience usually is with the city of Cleveland. And then you do have the 3 by the mayors and managers. So at any given time, we have 3 sitting mayors that usually have a different perspective that's also given based on where they are outside of the urban core. And then we have the remainder with the county. So we 3.
You know what that adds up to?
Yes.
Possible 5-5.
Absolutely. They do have an opportunity to come back in executive session where they kind of
I'm
duke
good.
it out, so to speak.
I raised a point.
Absolutely. It's a good point.
I didn't think about it till right now, and then I decided to have the discussion with you. And I'm excited. From
I'll
the
check
first
it for
time you
sure.
came up here to where you're at now, you're rocking it.
I
So,
appreciate you, sir, and I'll make sure we get back to you on that one.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Councilman, for always giving a strategy 101.
I have no idea about strategy.
Madam CEO, can you tell us, what are your biggest issues with our current public transportation system?
Through the chair, great question. We have quite a few items that we need to be able to get better and improve, to be quite honest. Public transportation as a nation has a lot of room to grow. I'd say for the Cleveland area, safety is the number one. Of course, you hear that across all conversations. But I will say that we, as an agency, had to get better at communicating what we're able to do and be realistic with our opportunities and boundaries. For example, our transit police were budgeted for 100 officers. We have a K-9 unit. We have additional officers administratively. And manpower was also an issue as we started to look down the rabbit hole for later this year. I'm very pleased to say that we took that opportunity to repackage the benefits package and then also look at the training. It's not just based on how much you get paid, but it's actually the quality of the job. And we are slated and on task to be able to fill that manpower gap by the end of the year and be 100% back up to numbers. That allows us to be able to be flexible and supportive of the city and the county and what they're doing to be able to support the constituents in being safe. I'd also say transit-oriented development is something we need to also delve feet first into. We are standing up a real estate division here in RTA. We actually own quite a bit of property that I think has the opportunity to make sure that RTA is at the table for the economic conversations to build up Cleveland and the surrounding area. That being said, it's not just enough for us to sell off land and have parking lots. We need to make sure that public transit is a part of the development conversation. I'm an urban planner by trade, so that's where I kind of nerd out a little bit, if you could excuse the colloquialism, and get into that. So we make sure that RTA is really at the table. If I'll just say one other thing, we have plenty of them, but we also need to make sure that our infrastructure is in good repair. A good example of that is the waterfront line that we just reopened for the Brown season earlier this month. Go Browns. That's also a good indication that we need to make sure the bridges are right. We need to make sure that the roadways are safe. We need to make sure that our stations and our shelters are in good repair. We have a lot of good bones here in Cleveland, but a lot of things are in state of good repair. So that being said, we want to make sure that we are financially sound as well. We are probably one of the only transportation agencies in the country to be able to go into a debt defeasance program. If you have questions on that, Raj Gotham, our CFO, is here in the audience as well, who serves as the Secretary Treasurer. So it positions us in a very good way to be able to tackle some of those long-standing transportation issues in order to present ourselves for a potential ballot initiative in years in the future.
Absolutely, that was a great briefing. You mentioned manpower, and that made me think about the event that I had an opportunity to attend a couple months back in Maple Heights, where you had the mayor of Solon, I believe, was president, and Swagelot. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing to better connect workers to job sites?
That's a great question. Thank you, Madam Chair. We are really getting into the initiative of microtransit, and that's that first last mile conversation you often hear. It did start in Solon, that conversation. When I got here, actually just made 4 years. Time flies with the pandemic. I sat down with Representative Dave Joyce and Mayor Kraus, as well as other business owners in Solon, and the outcry was that we have work, we can't get workers here. And so the idea that the last mile of our transportation may not connect exactly to the door of those businesses, first, brings up the idea that, again, we need to be at the table when those development decisions are made to make sure that those business owners are thinking about where they're placing their headquarters so that they're on a bus line or a rail line. But in the event they are not, it's on our watch to be able to make sure we can get them there. So in short, we have a few micro transit pilots. The first is in Solon with Raptite, which is a local business that is able to, basically it's a match program where we're able to look into our coffers, and we came up with $600,000 to be able to say, hey, we can run 2 different pilots. They match our 300. So each program is actually 600, and it runs about 18 months to 2 years. We've negotiated that already with our union, Amalgamated Transit Union. And if that service is productive and successful after that 18 months, we will work to absorb it into our system. So it's a way to grow our system to make sure that we have a guaranteed ridership. And then that way we're able to make sure that we have system networks in the right places. So it's really a good extension to be able to work toward that at the same time.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for Ms. Burslon-Terry? Okay. Thank you, Madam CEO.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we will hear from our candidate. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's really an honor to be here with you this morning to share why I would like to serve on the board.
Name for the record, please.
I'm sorry.
Thank
Yes. Good morning. I'm Deidre McPherson, and I'm honored to be here with you this morning to share why I would like to serve on the Board of Trustees for the Greater Cleveland RTA. I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself. For more than 15 years, I've worked as an arts administrator at several of our region's legacy arts institutions, including the Cleveland Orchestra, the Cleveland Museum of Art, and the Museum of Contemporary Art. As a programming director at MOCA and the CMA, I was responsible for curating and managing events designed to make the museums a vibrant, socially relevant, and welcoming destination. As a woman of color in leadership roles at these predominantly white institutions, I've worked hard to advance racial equity through designing events and programs that created a space of belonging and inclusion for underrepresented audiences. I've also worked with numerous artists over my career, dedicated to connecting them with opportunities to thrive and advance their careers and connect communities, artists, and institutions. Recognizing that the creative talent in our region and connecting artists to the public through public events, that's been really at the core of my work. I currently serve as Chief Community Officer at Assembly for the Arts, our region's arts council. And in case you're not familiar, Assembly is a nonprofit organization with a focus on advocacy, cultural policy, racial equity initiatives, and marketing that elevates our region's cultural sector. We serve as nonprofits, artists, and creative businesses. And by design, we work in close partnership with Cuyahoga Arts and Culture, our government agency that funds nonprofit arts organizations. I've worked also as a dedicated, committed, team-oriented leader in various capacities, both in public art projects and independently. I'm an avid bicyclist, so I've worked on a number of projects connecting people to active mobility and commuting via bike. I serve on a few boards at the moment. I'm currently on the board of Bike Cleveland, Cleveland Votes, and Sankofa Fine Art Plus. And my connection to RTA over the years has varied from being a young high school student at Cleveland Heights High School, taking the bus as part of my commute to and from school each day. And then for a short while working at MOCA Cleveland, making a modest salary, I would bike and take the bus to and from work. And I'll also share that I love Cleveland. I'm very passionate about helping to improve the quality of life for all through arts and culture and through equitable transit policies. I'm really passionate about the RTA's mission of connecting the community, and I share your vision for delivering safe and creative mobility solutions. let's see, I'm also committed to advocating for RTA and being an advocate for public transportation wherever possible. So thank you so much for considering me, and I appreciate the nomination.
Okay. I want to say it was last year, I believe, that the council was honored by the Assembly of the Arts for our support of ARPA requests. So we know a little bit about the Assembly of the Arts. I also must admit that I'm a little disappointed because I thought I might get a violin performance today. You bring a wealth of experience to this role, and I want to thank you for being a prominent force in the collective shift towards equity in Northeast Ohio. So,
Thank you, and we look forward to honoring Yvonne Conwell this Friday at our public officials breakfast. So it's
Thanks
a
for
pleasure
the reminder.
I'll see you Friday morning.
we will be there to support her.
Yes.
What else did I want to ask? Oh, and I also wanted to mention, since we were talking a lot about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and career advancement, I did have an opportunity to take the inaugural reopening of the waterfront line last week before last. That was really exciting, and a reminder of just how beautiful our city actually is from that perspective. And one of the stops when we pulled up to the Cleveland Brown Stadium was awesome. Some folks got off because they were also that day unveiling an Ohio Civil Rights marker to honor the summit, which included our own Jim Brown and many other prominent athletes at that time who were also advocating for belonging and inclusion in their space. Tell us a little bit, do you have any goals if you are confirmed this
Yes,
morning? Which
yes,
you
I have
will
a few
be. What are
goals.
your thoughts?
One, first and foremost, is increasing safety. When I was commuting to University Circle for a role, my role at Mocha Cleveland, I had the unfortunate incident of being mugged at an RTA station. So definitely want to advocate for safety so that we can increase ridership. One thing I greatly admire about the RTA is its commitment to public art and investing in the creative economy by commissioning work from our region's incredibly talented artists. One of my favorite travel hacks is parking at Brook Park and getting off at the RTA station at the airport. And it just brings me joy to walk into a gallery that's honoring Stephanie Tubbs-Jones and showcases a number of incredibly talented visual artists. And then also, I was very happy to see Mr. Soul create public art for bus stations that are in historically redlined communities so that residents in those neighborhoods can see themselves reflected and find inspiration in their daily commute. And then also increasing access to transit to work sites is really important to me. I lived in larger cities. I'm from Cleveland originally, but I've lived in a few larger cities with vast transportation systems, Boston, Washington, D.C., where taking public transportation is really part of everyone's daily commute. So that's important, as well as increasing access to our various cultural destinations in our region. I worked at the Cleveland Museum of Art. I would love to see a bus or train, or bus, probably more likely, take visitors to the museum. It's quite a distance for folks who might be differently abled to get to the nearest public transportation stop and to the museum. And it's a free asset in our community. So those are just a few of my goals that are first and foremost.
Okay, any questions? Councilwoman Conwell?
Yes, through the chair to Ms. McPherson. So in those other larger cities that you, because I was just trying to think about that. So most of those large cities that you stayed in probably had limited parking lots, and we have a lot of parking lots. But then I was sitting and thinking, well, why do we have a lot of parking lots down here? And our stadiums are down here, so we have to accommodate that. In the cities that you lived in, where the stadium's kind of out and they weren't in the downtown area,
Okay, I'm gonna admit that I'm not a huge sports fan.
Oh.
So, so I wasn't going to all the games, but I did find in Washington D.C. when they brought the Nationals back, the baseball team, that they did have great access to with those public transportation systems to those stadiums. And here in Cleveland, we do a pretty good job with. We used to call it the Gateway, but now it has a new name now. That's how
Oh, it's
close to
still
sports I
Gateway.
am. But I think to our arts and cultural destinations and some of our other hubs of community, that we could increase access to routes and schedules to encourage more public transportation and less driving. Who wants to pay for parking? So.
Right. What is the cost to ride the bus now?
I think it's $2.25.
$2.25. Okay, I need to put that in my memory bank. And then you talked about safety. So sorry that happened to you. So just thinking, does RTA have a safety committee or a committee specifically for safety? And how was your mind kind of thinking when you mentioned your incident? I was trying to think, well, how do we make a bus shelter more safe? Is it getting everybody wants cameras everywhere, cameras, and that doesn't keep you safe. It just catches, or more police, like Downtown Alliance has the ambassadors that walk the streets. What are kind of your thoughts to improve safety at a bus shelter?
I think both of those solutions are viable. Cameras for sure to capture incidents, as well as people on foot. And transit police are part of that as well. In my incident, I was on Mayfield near Euclid heading towards Cleveland Heights, and I was able to flag down support of a University Circle UCI Police Department. And then there were, neighbors and other commuters who were supportive of me at that moment. But, I was able to, it didn't keep me from taking public transportation.
Councilman?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Welcome.
Thank you.
You sound wonderful. I think I've met you through the course of my professional career, and just on the point of the waterfront line, I think I was on the original one. That just dated me big time. I'm going. My thoughts were, you added great value to the hardness of the RTA system, but as for listening to you talk, it's a lot lighter, or a lot more welcoming than it has been in the past. And every time I go through the airport with the Stephanie Jones, it's kind of cool for me because I got to interact with her. Can we make it a little more Stephanie Tubbs Jones? Because it's been there for a long time, and I think it's been static. I'd like to, and that's working with the city, of course, and I can maybe help there. But from that point, that's the most western end, and that's just a thought that came to my mind. And with the committee structure through the chair, is there a arts committee? And I think you'll be the chairperson of that.
Oh, I would be honored. You speak in my language, so.
Good. So just welcome aboard, and you have my support.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you. And anytime you bring up Stephanie Tubbs Jones, I have to say something as well. She was my political mom, and I would not absolutely be in public service without her. And anything related to the late Congresswoman, I wouldn't be involved, raising my hand. Safety was mentioned a lot today, and that made me think of your amazing chief, Deidre Jones. I know you're going to be working a lot with her regarding this plan. So she's an amazing asset, and just want to shout her out in absentia. If there are no further questions, do you have a final statement or?
No final statement other than to say I greatly appreciate all the people who have supported my nomination, India, Annie, Chris Ronayne, and I really look forward to being involved and increasing my ridership personally and within my network.
Okay.
I'd like to, you want to do it?
No, I want to ask another question, not of Ms. McPherson, but of Ms. Otaska.
Just hang on one second.
Councilwoman?
Okay, I just wanted to be clear through the chair to Ms. Zoe, the legislation, how many more board seats? We've scratched out Karen and Stephen, so we still need to refill those 2 spots.
So Stephen will be heard before your committee at a future date. He was unable to be here today, so that spot will be filled. And Karen Moss withdrew due to a conflict of interest, so we're working on getting that seat filled.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just a point came up to my mind, Madam Chair. It's a temporary, the 24. If you like it, we're going to want to ask you to stay, at least I will. Is that, what would your comment be on that?
Well, especially if I have the honor of chairing an Arts and Cultural Committee, that's definitely going to draw me deeper, and I would be, more than happy to extend my tenure beyond that.
Yeah, I just wanted to put that on the record and let people hear that. So thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Okay. Thank you. With all that being
Make a
said.
motion to appoint the presenter?
Motion.
Deidre?
and
Okay.
A second?
Second?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, congratulations, Ms. McPherson.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, for the record, I'd just like to confirm that the amended end date for Ms. McPherson is April 30th, 2024.
Okay, thank you.
Next item is Resolution 2023-0236, approving the appointment or reappointment of various individuals to serve on the Cuyahoga County Soldiers and Sailors Monument Commission Board of Trustees for various terms. For the appointment of Brigadier General Peter Collins for the unexpired term ending November 5th, 2025, and reappointments of Donald N. Jaffe, Richard T. Prassy, Michael R. Slawinski, for the term November 16th, 2023 through November 15th, 2028.
Gentlemen,
Good morning, HR Committee, Trevor McAleer, County Council staff. I'll be presenting this resolution briefly, and then Ted Prassy, who is the current chair of the Board of Trustees, will come up and provide a little bit more introduction for the candidates that are being recommended today. The Soldiers and Sailors Board of Trustees, as a reminder to the committee, is governed by Chapter 345 of the Ohio Revised Code. The board can consist of at least 5 members, but no more than 11. If council approves this resolution, the board will be at the maximum amount of 11 Board of Trustees. At least a majority of its members have to be honorably discharged veterans of the armed forces in the United States. Out of the 11 trustees, if this resolution were to get approved, 8 will have served in the United States military. The Board of Trustees serve staggered 5-year terms, and they are responsible to oversee the operations of the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, which is currently located for the committee at the southeast quadrant of Public Square. The county currently funds the Soldiers and Sailors Monument out of the general fund for a total budget of approximately $300,000 for operations. Council is the appointing authority for this and also, of course, approves the resolution. Regarding the 4 nominees, in today's legislation, Brigadier General Peter Collins is replacing Tracy Jemison for an unexpired term ending November 5th, 2025. And then Mr. Donald Jaffe, Mr. Ted Prassy, and Mr. Michael Slawinski are reappointments for a new 5-year term, which will begin on November 16th of this year and expire on November 15th, 2028. Mr. Jaffe has been on the board since 2014 and is a veteran. Mr. Prassy has been on the board since 2005 and is a veteran. And as I mentioned, he is currently serving as the board, or as the president of the Board of Trustees. And Mr. Slawinski has been on the board since 2018 and is a veteran. If there aren't any questions about the process, then I would invite Mr. Prassy to come up and talk a little bit more about the appointments and his role on the board.
okay, thank you. McAleer, appreciate that. Mr. Prassy, good morning again.
Good morning and thank you. Thank you, Mr. McAleer. So my name is Ted Prassy, and I chair the commission, which is the appointed members responsible for this monument. This commission and the monument go back into the 19th century. So I would amend or clarify Mr. McAleer's statement. Not only are we currently here, we have always been here since 1894. So our task, as set forth in 19th century language, is to make sure the names inside are kept fresh with reverent honors in the Book of National Remembrance. So this refers to the 9,000 men from the county who served in America's Civil War. When you go inside and you see the names and you understand their history, you know they're black and white. They're Yankees whose people were here, and they're immigrants. So it represents who we were at the time. Our challenge, of course, is to make sure we continue to remain relevant to the people in Cuyahoga County. This is, after all, their monument. So as a group, that is our focus. We consider ourselves to be fortunate. We think we have the finest Civil War monument that's not on a battlefield. It is created by the veterans to tell their own story, and thus our focus on veterans. Historically, we are a Civil War monument, which means our natural constituency is descendants of those on the wall and those who have an interest in the Civil War. And we try and recognize that, not forget that group. So for instance, in October, we have one of the foremost historians and Civil War reenactors who portrays General Grant across the country and on TV, who'll be coming in and spending part of a day there as preliminary to visiting each of the local Civil War roundtables. We also work closely with those organizations that still exist, the Sons of Union Veterans, the Military Order of the Loyal Legion in the United States, which both have their roots with Civil War veterans. We also see our natural constituency, because of our staffing and the prominence of our monument, to extend to veterans. And so we do work with veterans and veterans groups. We will also be hosting the former Acting Secretary of the Navy in October, who will spend time with us and with the public talking about his role. And so in that sense, we reach out. We've also reached out through the Veterans Courts and other places for volunteers. So we see that. We hope to return to what we were doing pre-COVID, and that's, as you know, each year we plant flowers. And those flowers have significance. They represent various emblems. At the end of the season, we try and take at least a few hundred of those, repot them, and take them to those that are in the Veterans Administration Hospital, so that we can say to them, this is a piece of your past as well as ours. So that's what we try and do. One of the things we've been trying to focus on this year and hope to have in place for next school year, if not before, is a project reaching out to the school children in the county. And of course, the school children here in Cleveland as part of that. And so we're working hard. Behind me is Greg Palumbo, our executive director, who's leading a charge to do exactly that, to develop both the curriculum, the content that's important, but also the logistics that allows schools to say, we value this, this is worth taking the children out of the classroom and bringing them to downtown Cleveland to see it. So we're very excited with our first name before you, and that's Peter Collins. And I think you've seen his bio, but let me, if I could, briefly touch on a few of these things. So he's a local native from Kirtland. He and his wife have retired back home to Cuyahoga County. He's a lawyer and a Marine, and he would probably say it in the other order. He's a Marine and a lawyer. He's been at the top levels of service, but he also brought that forward then when he retired. He served with the Navy Marine Corps Aid Association as executive vice president. And then he was also on the board when he lived in DC on the Navy Aid Association. So he's supportive, understands veterans issues. Since he's been in Cleveland, he's also taken on a role with the Legacy Cleveland Project. And so we're happy about that. That's a group we have a close relationship with and support. In fact, Tim Daly, who some of you will remember, is now also closely involved, once he retired from our service, with the Legacy Cleveland group. So if you need your Tim Daly fix, make sure you take in those Navy projects.
I'm a Tim Daly fan.
There you go. and we appreciate that. He's also had an association with the Navy Memorial in Washington, D.C., which is pretty close to what we are. And so he'll bring some new ideas to us. He's energetic, interested, a resident of Cuyahoga County, a veteran, and someone we believe will bring a great deal of support to us. With regard to myself, so I've been on the commission since 2005, including, I think, now 12 years as president of the commission. So I've been lucky to work with a couple of very good staff people and a bunch of others that are very passionate about what we do. And we really do appreciate the support of the county and the council for what we've been able to do with our staffers. We are now open 7 days a week, around from 10 to 5:30 every day. Our challenge is we know most people in Cuyahoga County know where we are, but very few know you can come inside. Our outside is a space of grandeur, monuments, speaks to war, speaks to the emblems that go with it. When one comes inside, one understands that there are individuals involved. It's a space of service that recognizes the sacrifice of service. And so in that sense, we have at least 9,000 stories to tell. And so that's what we continue to do. So I think that's my mission, right? As a volunteer, I can help bring energy, I can help bring support, I can help bring some organization from that standpoint. But also, as a volunteer, I become somebody else to help tell the stories. And they're important stories, and they're important to me as well. My great-grandfather's name is on the wall. So from that standpoint. And as you know, Madam Chair, we continue to recognize the people that are part of our past and tell their story. We were fortunate and thankful that you came to the ceremony we had at the Erie Street Cemetery to recognize Dan Fields and his family with renewing the headstones there. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions, both with regard to Mr. Collins and myself. And then I would also point out I have two other people with me that you know. Both Mr. Slawinski and General Jaffe are important for us. Both have been active, engaged, supportive. Mr. Slawinski has served a prior term and then had to step down when he became a judge and has returned to us, and we're thankful for that.
And we are grateful for his and your service. I was going to ask about some of the approved programming, but I think you kind of gave us an overview of what's to come. And I'm looking forward to my invitation. I was amazed at the rededication for the Fields family, and I felt a part of what was happening. It was very emotional, and to hear the story of Dan Fields and his migration to our area in the Civil War, and to be in that beautiful panel with President Abraham Lincoln, and the chains being broken is very impactful. If you have not had an opportunity to go over there and visit the Goddess of Freedom atop of the monument, the Shield of Liberty, I mean, it is, it left me in awe. So that was an honor. Greg Palumbo was amazing. Reverend Burrs from the First Baptist of Greater Cleveland. That was a great event. I got the invitation and I was very curious. And so now I'm sold. You have an ally in me. I don't have any further questions. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues if they have. Councilwoman Conwell.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. To Mr. Prasi, do you have a storyteller for the tours?
If I may, we have several. The challenge always is, like everybody else, right? It's you have people who are energetic and enthused and passionate, and if they decide they can do better, we encourage them to do so. One of the programs we've put in place with your support is we bring in 2 interns each summer to help us. it does two things. They have an opportunity to kind of test the waters. And for us, not only are we getting help, but we're creating ambassadors for the future. We do favor veterans, but not all are veterans. And so this year, for example, we had 2 young people who did a great job for us. Usually they're folks coming right out of college or close to it. And so we always have turnover. We lost Tim Daly when he retired, right? Tim is a magnificent storyteller. And so is Greg Palumbo. And so we're fortunate there. We did a good job. We have 2 other employees. One of them is Shane Doyle, who you may remember. Shane always played patriotic Santa for us. He's a veteran, and he could tell the story. He's active in the Sons of Union Veterans. But Shane learned that he could do a little better for his retirement by taking a higher paying job within the public system. And so that's what he's doing. He's improving his retirement. So we're looking for people right now. We've interviewed some good folks, and we expect that we will have an opportunity to always do better, right? That's our motto. All right, now we can do a little better. What would we do a little differently?
I'm just wondering, have you connected with CSU and, you know, like some of the history majors and things like that, going, you know, talking with
Yeah,
them?
sure.
'Cause
Well,
there's some people out there that just love history, and I'm talking about.
Well, and we love the people that love history. As you know, in fact, most of the members of our commission love history, and many volunteer. Those of you who have worked with C. Ellen Connolly, the vice president of our commission, understands that she likes to tell stories, and particularly historic stories. So yes, we do have storytellers, and we can always use more. Is that responsive?
Yes. My last question would be, where are we at? What's the status in the monument in regards to the renovations and repairs?
So renovations, and thank you for the question. Renovations and repairs are always an ongoing challenge for us, right? In order to protect that memory, we need to have the space there. We do go back to 1894, which means we have things which go wrong. Sometimes it's natural, sometimes it's man-made. We do have people that commit vandalism on the monument, and so we try and work with that. But for the most part, it's the wear and tear of time. So in the renovations that Cuyahoga County played the major role in funding, in 2011-12, most of that is in good shape. With the changes outside with the redo of Public Square for the 2016 era, we've had a few challenges, but for the most part, it's worked pretty well. We've dealt with the change where the steam, Cleveland Steam left, so we had to come up with a new heat system. So we've managed to get that in place with the necessary wiring that was run in. We've had good support from the county in terms of work on the upper esplanade, which is the terraced areas around the actual walls of the monument. And so those are in good shape. Currently planned is some more tuck pointing, which is important to us. And of course, always continue to take care of that statuary that we're aware of. So we're making progress, but it is an ongoing task which will never end.
So I don't remember, do you guys come before us and speak at the budget hearing?
Yes, we do.
So at that point, you will share any needs or anything that?
We absolutely will. I'll give you a preview, and that's just to know that we really would like to maintain the idea of having Mr. Palumbo with 2 full-timers and 2 part-timers, and then in the summers, 2 interns. That allows us to staff at the levels we think is appropriate for safety and for the storytelling.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, I think that is it. May I have a motion to move this item to the full body of council? for
Madam
sec-
Chair, we still have 2 more appointees to hear testimony.
If you'd like to
before
do
we
that.
Hear
vote.
from. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. I thought he was speaking on behalf of everybody. I'm sorry. Good morning. I'm sorry about
Morning,
that.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Donald Jaffe. I appear before you today for purposes of your approval of a reappointment of me to the commission. As the president had commented and council had commented, under the statutory appointment, a majority of the members have to be of prior military service. In that regard, and not trying to sound vain, I was in the Army Reserve as a JAG officer, and after honorable discharge, I then was in the Ohio Military Reserve, which was part of the Ohio Adjutant General's Department, and retired out of that as deputy commander. My profession is as an attorney. As was commented, I've been on the commission since 2014. I like to think I had and still have 100% attendance during COVID. Of course, we did not have in-person meetings. We did that by Zoom, and I attended via Zoom all of the commission meetings that were scheduled through that, and I intend to continue my attendance on that. I look at the commission as not just a historical facility, which obviously has importance of its own, but also to apprise the newer generation of what the Civil War meant, why, even the question, why even still have a Civil War memorial? Not realizing that it was the only Civil War in the history of this country, that more individuals, over 600,000 individuals, were killed as a result of that, but also on the positive side, the groundwork that the Civil War laid in terms of a new era for the United States. It was also a period of time, with the exception, obviously, of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, more amendments to the Constitution came out of the Civil War than any other period in our history. And as was mentioned, education, I think, is a keystone to the development, and we strive for continuing attendance at the museum, speaking to particularly the younger generation, but everyone having some familiarity with the significance of the monument. As an aside, and was just mentioned by President Press, not long ago, Greg Palumbo was hired as our new executive director, and I cannot commend him enough. He has given diligence above and beyond really the call of duty. And we have a limited staff. We're not numbering hundreds or thousands, but we function with both a full and a part-time staff under Greg's direction, and I believe he's done an outstanding job. Unless there are any questions, I ask that the committee approve my reappointment.
Thank you. No questions at this time. But thank you for your willingness to serve. You've been an asset, and we look forward to your continued service.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
And we have Mr. Slawinski.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Morning.
Michael Slawinski, and I'm here to seek a reappointment to the Cuyahoga County Soldiers and Sailors Monument Commission. I am also a veteran. I served in the Marine Corps for 4 years, from 1994 to 98. And I have been on the commission, I think it was originally stated since 2018. That's my most recent appointment. But I was originally appointed in 2011 and served until 2016 when I took an appointment as a judge for the Cleveland Municipal Court. Once that ended, I did come back, and I was excited to rejoin the commission and rejoin all the great work that they've been doing. I think a lot of that work has been covered already. I won't rehash a lot of it. But as I think back to since 2011, what I have been involved in and some of the great projects, I know I came in right when we were in the middle of adding names on the wall to make sure that we recognize all of the soldiers and sailors that served from the county, regardless of race. Being part of the commission during the public square renovation, and being part of the committee that made sure that we took some of that stonework from the old monument and made sure that it went to good places, went to places that were serving veterans and active in veterans issues. I know Mr. Jaffe had mentioned this, but I was part of the search for an executive director after we lost Tim Daly when he retired. I shouldn't say I lost him, but when he retired. And that was an exciting time to be on the commission. I think we did incredibly well in finding Greg Palumbo to take his role, and it's been a pretty seamless transition from there. And I've served almost the entire time that I've been on the commission in a role as either secretary or treasurer. I'm not currently in one of those roles, but I think for about eight of the 10 years that I've been on the commission, I've been in one of those executive roles, which has allowed me to also use some of the skills that I have as a lawyer to consider policies, such as how we bring groups into the monument for the use of the monument, making sure, I know some of the things we've considered is, kind of formalizing some of these things to make sure that they have insurance and if groups are coming. Outside the monument, I do try to stay active in veterans issues. When I was on the Cleveland Municipal Court, I had the pleasure of presiding when Judge Patton wasn't available. I was able to take the veterans treatment docket in the Cleveland Municipal Court, and that was probably one of the things I enjoyed most about being there. I know at the commission we've used some of the people who are on that veterans treatment docket to engage them with the monument, help with some of the planting, and it's a terrific thing to do. I've also been engaged with the Andy Nowacki Foundation, which is a scholarship foundation out in Lakeland Community College, or out of Lake County, that honors a Marine who was killed in Afghanistan. And I know his parents very well. They started a scholarship fund that he was a first responder, and it gives full tuition for anybody who's looking to go into any type of first responder role. Looking to the future of the monument, I know even with the RTA, the safety, just the general safety issues have been brought up. We are looking forward, one, to making sure that we remain fully staffed so that we have people on the square. And of course, a presence on the square is key for safety. But also, I look forward to working with the commission as Public Square engages in its lighting project, and hopefully we can get the monument a little more well lit. And I think I agree with everybody that has said what an incredible gem the monument is to this county. And
It is.
It is terrific. So
Okay.
I'm open to questions if there are any.
Well, thank you for your comments, your presentation, your commitment, your passion. I know you're invested. Thank you for coming back. We look forward to continue to engage with you. Councilwoman Conwell has a question.
Yes, through the chair, to Mr. Slawinski, for Veterans Day, is there anything special done with the monument?
We always do recognize Veterans Day. I always kind of joke around to people that I feel like sometimes veterans that are active in their community are the ones that don't get the day off on Veterans Day. I've done events with the monument on Veterans Day, whether it's speeches or other community organizations. But yeah, the monument always does recognize Veterans Day.
You're not alone. Elected officials don't get too many
Yes.
holidays
This
off
is
either.
Ted Pressey. May I supplement that? Because you're always welcome. We always do a program on Veterans Day, always on Decoration Day. That's the 30th of May. And we are really the home of the public recognition of 9/11 in Cleveland. So you can count on the fact we'll be doing something.
Okay, with no further questions, may I have a motion to move this item to the full body of council for second reading? And moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well, thank you. I know he's not here, but to Brigadier General Peter Collins, Mr. Jaffe, Mr. Prosy, Judge Lewinsky, thank you for your service. Okay, Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair, if we could just for a moment return to the prior item, Resolution 2023-0226, for the appointments to the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority Board of Trustees. I just wanted to clarify whether the approval was for second reading or second reading under suspension of rules.
It was second reading under suspension.
Thank you. Next item, Resolution 2023-0253, authorizing an amendment to Agreement Number 1175 with the Metro Health System for the Metro Health Select Network Health Benefit Plan for county employees and their eligible dependents for the period January 1st, 2016 through December 31st, 2022, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2024, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $1,645,000.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm Sarah Nemistel on behalf of the Department of Human Resources. So this resolution concerns our agreement with Metro. We began partnering with Metro to offer an employee benefits plan back in 2009. In 2017, when the plan was being renegotiated, Metro Health submitted a proposal that included increased rates. But rather than moving forward with those rates, the county negotiated a shared savings agreement with Metro, and we have continued that arrangement since. So each year, how it works is a benchmark is set using 3 years of claims data. Metro sets the benchmark, and it is peer-reviewed by Oswald, our benefits consultant. If the plan performs well and comes in below the benchmark, the county is contractually required to pay Metro Health a portion of those savings. So for the first 3% of savings, we pay Metro, the next 3% we keep, and then anything over that, we split the difference 50-50. So the shared savings program incentivizes Metro to keep our claims cost as low as possible. It also helps the county avoid rate increases for Metro services in the future. In terms of timing, the shared savings payments aren't due and payable until the following plan year, because we have to wait for the first quarter to close, so we have all of the claims data in. Normally, the agreement for the previous performance year comes before council in June of the following year, so admittedly, we are late. To eliminate the timing issue moving forward, we worked with Metro to revise the language in the agreements. These revisions include incorporating a not-to-exceed amount. We've also extended the contract through June 30th of 2024 to cover any shared savings payment that would be due in 2024 if the claims for 2023 come in under benchmark. This will also allow the county, if we continue the shared savings arrangement, to prepare and process the next agreement with no lapse. The shared savings program is accounted for and budgeted in the expected cost of our healthcare plans. It's built into the composite rate, which is the set amount charged to each employee per pay period to cover our portion of claims costs. If shared savings are realized and payment is made, that means the county saved money. Our claims came in under benchmark. It's not an additional cost. Understanding this request is later than the past, we apologize for that and respectfully request that the committee move this item on for consideration by council under second reading suspension of the rules.
Okay, so I was going to ask a few questions, but you've answered them about the contract being late. What were some things that we could do to avoid that? And you addressed that. Revised language, not to exceed amount, et cetera. Do I have any questions from my colleagues?
I'll move approval if you want me for second reading.
There's a motion. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Madam Clerk?
And that was approval on second reading suspension, correct?
Approval on second reading under suspension of the rules, yes.
Next item, Resolution 2023-0254, authorizing a contract with Medical Mutual of Ohio in the amount not to exceed $1,800,000 for stop-loss insurance services for county employees and their eligible dependents and Cuyahoga County Benefits Regionalization Program participants' employees and their eligible dependents for the period to January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023.
Good morning. Sarah Nemistel on behalf of the Department of Human Resources. This request is for our stop-loss coverage. As background, the county is self-insured for our medical and prescription drug costs, meaning that we pay 100% of our portion of claims, and we pay Medical Mutual of Ohio to administer our plans and CVS to administer our drug plans. Stop-loss coverage is essentially excess coverage for our self-insured plan. It mitigates risk as a self-insured employer, and it covers catastrophic claims. How it works is if a single participant, either an employee or a covered family member, experiences medical costs that exceed $750,000 during the calendar year, the stop loss is activated and the insurer will pay all expenses over that $750,000 threshold. This is very common for large self-insured employers. The county and our benefits consultant, Oswald Companies, evaluated the $750,000 stop-loss level along with some lower levels, keeping in mind that the county once set stop-loss much lower at $300,000. The analysis evaluated the premium that would be paid versus our expected claims to be reimbursed, and we concluded it is best for the county to maintain that $750,000 stop-loss level. Today's item is for the 2023 stop-loss contract. Stop-loss coverage is also negotiated annually, and similar to shared savings, it normally comes to the committee and council later on in the year because MMO needs to look at all the claims data from the previous year in order to come up with its evaluation for what the premium should be. The usual delay was increased this year due to significant discussion with Medical Mutual's legal department before the contract could be finalized. It involved a not-to-exceed amount. Previously, we didn't include the not-to-exceed amount in the contracts. It was just in the resolution. We were urged to include it in the contract by the law department this round. So there is just some back and forth on that and questions, which took a little bit of time to work out. We understand that the request is later than in the past and will work to see that this does not happen again, and respectfully request that the committee consider moving this item on for consideration by council under second reading suspension of the rules.
Questions? Wanted just to rehash, even though you addressed it, that this contract was very late.
Yes.
And what are we going to do to make sure that doesn't happen again?
So I think for this one, there are a couple of things. A transition in leadership within HR. I came on board on May 9th this year. I was confirmed. And then also, this was the first time we included not to exceed language in the actual contract. And that was surprising to Medical Mutual of Ohio because we had never included it before. So there's, I'm a lawyer, but once lawyers are involved, things can get complicated and there's some back and forth. But we were able to work it out, and in the future, the not to exceed won't be a surprise, and we're hoping to get that done much earlier.
Thank you.
Just to be clear, Director, it's late due to this was for this year. This was the stop loss insurance for this year.
They've been, Medical Mutual has been providing coverage for 2023, so we have coverage. The contract is just coming very late.
Okay, so in the past, I know the stop loss, the insurance, the pharmacy, anything that was medical was brought before this committee in around November, late October, around November, for, of course, the year that's coming up. Is that your plan? Since this one was late, will you be coming before us in another couple months so we can talk about next year's?
So for 2024, the insurer won't have a premium in mind until they have all of the claims data for 2023. So because they're looking at the performance during the entire prior year, we would be bringing that in the spring. So they always come late, but not this late.
All right, thank you.
All right, so at this time, may I have a motion to move this item to the full body of council for second reading under suspension of rules?
So moved?
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk?
Ordinance 2023-0014, providing for the adoption of a new section 3.04 of the Cuyahoga County Employee Handbook.
Sarah Namasto again, on behalf of the Department of Human Resources. So a new federal law, the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, was adopted on December 29, 2022, and went into effect on June 27th of 2023. This new law is applicable to the county. It applies to employers who have at least 15 employees, and it requires the county to provide reasonable accommodations to an employee's known limitations related to pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions, unless the accommodation will cause the county an undue hardship. We are seeking to incorporate additional language into a section 3.04 of the Employee Handbook to address the county's obligations under the PWFA, basically notifying employees that the county will grant reasonable accommodations to pregnant employees for known limitations related to pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions, and advising employees that they must submit a written request for the accommodations to the Department of Human Resources. We've provided internal training on this new law to our HR team, and we've also developed a form for employees to request accommodations. It's already on Infor. The PRC also considered this proposed amendment and issued a letter of endorsement to council on July 18th, 2023.
Okay, so if I'm an employee, I'm asking, what are reasonable accommodations?
What are reasonable accommodations? So the House Committee on Education and Labor provided several examples of what they see as possible reasonable accommodations. Basically, maybe you need to sit more. Maybe if you typically stand, you can ask for a stool so you can, sit down while you're performing your work. More frequent breaks, restroom breaks, water. Additional leave to recover from childbirth if maybe you don't have family medical leave available, or paid leave because you haven't been employed with us for a year. Basically, it's a change to the work environment or the way things are done. And we're obligated to provide those unless they would provide some sort of undue hardship on the county.
Okay, and an employee would request these accommodations via a form,
Yes,
which they can locate again where?
on Infor.
On Infor. Councilman?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And when we have new programs or offers to our coworkers, having the ability to know they exist is important. And after this legislation is passed, we're going to be, this is available, this is available. That's your game plan?
Yes,
Good.
we
And
will
one
get
other
this out.
thing, yeah, and just the foot standing pad, if they're standing up, that's a huge help.
A foot standing pad, okay.
It's just a cushion, 2-inch cushion standing pad. I mean, that helps a lot when I talk to people, and I think it would be helpful not just to sit, because if they're standing, that would be, what word would we use? Accommodating or accommodations?
Now,
Thank
you
you.
are suggesting that they can bring in their own pad, or are you suggesting that we pay for the pad?
I pay for the pad. It's part of a work environment, whatever. I'm just, what we talked about is accommodations. You said a stool,
And-
you said a chair.
right,
You
and
said
that's-
this and that. And if you're at work and one of your things you need to work with, because you need these accommodation, is a 3x2 or 3x4 pad that you sit down and you do your job. And it helps your back, it helps your feet, it helps part of them with the standing desk. I think it should be normal, but we gotten way too down to the details.
So typically, if a request, comes through and it's not something fairly standard that we could accommodate, like, more frequent water breaks, or maybe they can bring bottled water into the work environment, something like that. We have to engage in what's called the interactive process, and that's a process, some back and forth with the employee.
Yeah.
And then, yes, we have paid for equipment before for employees, but it's always subject to the analysis of significant difficulty or expense for the employer. So if it's not a significant expense, yeah.
So do we anticipate any budgetary impacts?
You know, I mean, I'm sure there will be some, but it really depends on what the requests are. Maybe someone needs a second set of uniforms, but I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything that would be significant.
Councilwoman Conwell?
Yes, Madam Chair, to Ms. Nemistow, does this law include medical care for the child that was recently birthed?
Medical care for the,
So the mom is excused if she's, a little bit after birth, if she's having some issues. Does that also include if there was some medical care for her child in terms of, I guess, taking off or something like that? How's that look?
Sure. Well, so because it's a new law, the EEOC submitted some proposed regulations for comment, and I think the comment is coming down sometime in October. And until we have those rules and then, the courts start interpreting this, I think we'll get more clarity. But, right now, the law as it's written requires reasonable accommodations related to childbirth. So I would think in that circumstance, if somebody needed additional time to care for their newborn child, that we could provide that.
Madam Chair, I'm requesting that once they get the verbiage in October, if she could come before us and update us so I can stay privy to that. And does this include for the county temporary workers or just our full-time and part-time workers?
I believe it would only cover our employees. So temporary employees, they're not employed by us. So, but I would have to check that to be sure.
And then my last question would be, through the chair, is the undue hardships, or maybe it's a comment more or less, the undue hardships that you mentioned can really be eliminated by planning. So if we, I don't know if there's anything in the law that an employee has to notify us that they're expecting until, the actual, when the baby's going to be added on. But if we knew that, then we could plan and make sure that we have additional help for that person. Just my saying, more of a comment. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Director, I'm sure you'd be willing to come back and update us at any time, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. May I have a motion to move this item to the full body of council?
Gladly, and add my name.
Have a second?
Yes,
Oh,
no.
I'm sorry.
Add my name.
Let's finish do I have a motion?
We have a motion. Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Please add Councilwoman Conwell's name to the legislation.
And this is for second reading?
Yes.
Suspension. Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
it's an ordinance. It has to go 3 readings.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
We're good? Chairman? Okay, all right. Is there any miscellaneous business? There is none. This meeting is adjourned.